Wondering what's next in your business or personal life? Welcome to Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings, a podcast dedicated to helping you with all of life's challenges, discoveries, and opportunities. Whether you're seeking a new career, retirement, or simply wanting to make an impact in your community or the world. Join Jen Duplessis and her guests as they explore how to start, what to do when you're in the thick of a change or growth, and how to leave a mark in this world after breaking through your next achievement. You are moments away from the aha you've been seeking.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. And of course, I'm your host, Jen Duplessis, and I am so delighted to have you all here today. And I want to again thank you for taking time out of your busy days to listen in and hopefully get some actionable items that you will help you get to that next level in your business or in your personal life. It really means a lot, that people are progressing in today's world, because we do have a lot of roadblocks ahead of us, right? We were just talking about this, Lauren, right? And so today my guest is Lauren Fields. She is a TEDx speaker. She's a podcast host and an entrepreneur, and she's passionate about entrepreneurship and helping individuals design and live extraordinary lives, which is so up my alley, which is why we connected so well. I'm just like 30 years ahead of her, right? And age and everything else, right? She has a diverse background, in health and wellness, life coaching, and she founded Fields Well Method to empower clients to overcome challenges with resilience and grace. And of course, this came from I shouldn't say of course, but this came from her own recovery with a traumatic brain injury. So she now wants to help others, in that world as well. So there's a little bit of both going on there, Lauren, but thank you so much for being in on the show.
Oh, hi, Jen. Thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. It's an absolute honor to be here today.
Thank you. So I want to talk about, because obviously this is success to significance, because I know you're making that significance in your life. And I always say, we learn, we earn, and then we want to return or give back in the world. And so I know that you're in this learn, return phase of your career and your business now. But then also the other part is breaking through glass ceilings. And so tell us a little bit about you had, this career that you were heading in, health and wellness and fitness and all that good stuff. And did this traumatic brain injury happen during all of that? Or was it just after? So kind of just walk us through how this all kind of came about that you're now, working with people to help them live this quality of life.
Sure. So I look at that traumatic brain injury as my North Star. It actually happened before I started this path.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 14 years old, grew up as an equestrian, show jumping. I was in a horse accident and I was life flighted into a coma. And I woke up in the hospital 3 days later. My last memory was on the horse galloping towards a jump. I was told that I had experienced a traumatic brain injury, and the doctors had limiting beliefs about my future. May have to relearn how to speak, may struggle with memory retention, may have difficulty walking. And I thought, how could they say these things before really knowing what my future was going to be like? And so I was convinced to set out and prove to everyone that, number one, I was okay, but number two, that this was not going to be my story. And so I went back to school. I went on to study business and enter the corporate arena in New York City. But this accident kept coming up, and it was manifesting in physical form as nerve damage due to a blood spot on my brain from that accident.
Right.
And so I was finding myself in hospital waiting rooms, having different surgeries to correct it. And I was at a low point in my life because I just said, why is this happening to me? And it was at that point that I surrendered and I turned into personal development, self-help to kind of stabilize myself during this challenging period of my life. And so that's really ultimately how this all started.
Wow. Yeah. And when you started talking about it, I remember that too, because, if you're watching this behind me, I live in horse jumping country. In fact, there's a colt show happening right now down the road from me. It's the oldest colt show in the world. And well, I shouldn't say in the world, in the United States, because it was brought here, from from England. But yeah, and so I'm very familiar with some of the injuries that can happen, surrounding horses and things like that. And so, when you had this injury, it became that catalyst because you were quite young. So it put you into fitness, it puts you into making sure you're taking care of your body, mind, soul, just like the whole kit and caboodle, right? One-stop shop. So why did you make the transition? Because I know you're also right now in the process of getting your master's degree in psychology. So tell us a little bit about the educational path and how that morphed into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I want to go back. In my younger 20s, I was living in New York City. This is after I'd had the surgeries and all the hospital visits I was telling you about. I wanted to prove to everyone that my life was so beautiful and everything was okay. But I was focused on the external. At the time, I was working as a lifestyle manager. I managed a book of over 30 clients. I planned their day-to-day, their events, their travel to ensure that like their external reality was picture perfect. But what I realized for me in that point was like the soul of the business was lacking. Like I wanted to know, how are you doing inside? And so then I dove into health and wellness coaching certification, life coaching certification, yoga teacher training. And then ultimately I said, what I really want to understand is the science behind human behavior. And so then I started my master's work in psychology, which I graduate in a few months. And that has really just like all of that kind of combined, the coaching, the psychology, all of it, finally starting to speak on that and help others understand themselves on a deeper level is where I find myself today.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's cool that you took that on because, you and I've talked about it. I've said it on this podcast too. My husband suffered from a traumatic brain injury 2 years ago, and he's still chasing his tail. He's still trying to figure things out. He's still in the clouds. He's still mushy. It's almost like a little Linus effect, right? Like this cloud of stuff just keeps following him around. And I love that you just, took the bull by the horns or took the reins, right? You took those reins and said,
reins.
you took the reins and said, this isn't going to be, defining my life and I'm going to exceed it. So how difficult has it been for you? Or maybe I guess, let me ask this question. It's not about the difficulty of, going to school and getting master's degrees, with a traumatic brain injury, but what are some of the symptoms your traumatic brain injury is bringing forward for you? Because anyone who's listening that has a traumatic brain injury, I think the challenge is there's not a one fix for anybody, right? It's how do you cope?
Yeah.
What are some of the ways that you cope? Those aren't probably the best words. What's a better way? What are some of the ways that you thrive, that you recognize or increase the awareness of the triggers for yourself and how you maneuver through that?
Yeah. So what's interesting about a traumatic brain injury is no symptoms are going to be the same, like case by case. No traumatic brain injury is going to have the same effects. And so it's why those doctors were able to say this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. But it really is case by case because each injury is different, where the brain is hit, how old the person is, what their lifestyle is like. And so the best advice I can give for anyone who has had a traumatic brain injury is really to take amazing care of yourself and start to live a life by design instead of by default. So to have a vision for yourself, to be taking care of yourself, to master that relationship with yourself. So many of the things that I practice are, mindset work, are fitness, movement, meditation, ensure I'm eating correctly. Thankfully for me, months following the accident, I did feel really foggy.
Yeah.
But I was young. So I think that was a benefit I had on my side, the recovery. And so now the only symptoms that I notice are the neurological symptoms that I had that was actually a common symptom of a traumatic brain injury is drop foot, where a part of your brain is not signaling your foot to lift correctly. And so I had a tendon transfer surgery to correct that. And so the only thing that I noticed from my accident is that my gait feels a little bit different, a little bit off from that surgery and from that drop foot symptom from the traumatic brain injury. Other than that, I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. I love how you said gait. That's another horse term too. I love
Yeah.
I know you may have to go in a direction with horses here. You may have to start doing get back in the race, take the reins.
All the horse terms.
Yeah.
Get in the arena. you
Yeah, get in
know?
the arena. Don't be a
Yeah.
spectator, right? Like all those fun things. That would be awesome. And you know, it would, do you have a fear of horses now because of that? Do you have
You
like,
know, I really don't. I was such a fearless child growing up, and I love to dance with fear now because I think that's how ultimately we grow is by pushing ourselves to do things and challenging ourselves to do things that we are afraid of. You
yeah.
know, I went back, I competed after the accident, and then I think I had competed competitively for over a decade,
Oh,
and I
wow.
was really craving more of a social life. I was going into college,
Yeah.
put this to the side. I now ride when I can for joy and just for fun, but I am not, you know, it's more like a trail ride than
Yeah.
it was like show jumping.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and especially the older you get, you're like, okay, so if this could happen again, if lightning strikes twice, you know, I wouldn't have
Yes.
anything recover. Yeah. I totally get that. So how do you, you know, for the person who's listening here is, you know, a lot of us have limiting beliefs. I was just coaching, well, not coaching, I was participating in something down in Acapulco a couple of weeks ago. And this woman said, well, I think that my problem is I have limiting beliefs around that. And I said, well, you know, what if you had lifting beliefs instead of
Mm.
limiting beliefs? And she said, can I use that? And I go, yeah, but I'm going to use it too.
Yeah.
Because I, right,
Yeah.
but how do you turn limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
you know, or even the naysayers who say you can't do that, right? Those types of things. How do you turn that into lifting beliefs, regardless of what you're encountering? Because you're, in your case, it was a traumatic brain injury. They told you, oh, you're not going to be able to do this. But
Mhm.
so often we have these limiting beliefs around our business, around, you know, what we want in life, which most people don't even know. That's another challenge too. But
Right.
what are some of the things that you're coaching people on to create those lifting beliefs now that we have this new term for you?
Yeah. Well, I absolutely love this question. And I want to start it out by saying Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza is one of my favorite scientists, and he has a show on Gaia Network called Rewired. And
Yeah.
one of the statistics that he shared is that as humans, we think on average 60,000 thoughts a day.
Mhm.
And of those 60,000 thoughts, up to 90% of those thoughts can be repetitive, and up to 80% can be negative. So if you think about that statistic, the starting point is
That's
to
negativity.
the
Yeah.
negativity and where, number one, so take inventory of the thoughts you're having, but also
Mm.
understand where these thoughts are coming from. And so often they're coming from our childhood and the experiences we had when we were young that came to form our identity. And we're not challenging the way we're thinking and whether our thoughts are real, we're just believing them. So the starting point would be take inventory of your thoughts. And if you're noticing you're on these negative thought loops, is this thought valid? Why do I believe it? And what do I want to be thinking instead? And it doesn't have to be like the complete opposite. It can be a realistic thought. So instead of saying, like, oh, you know, this will never work, instead change the thought to what if it does?
Yeah. Or how can I make it work? Right.
How can I make it work? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to take it even a step further, I have multiple methods of how I practice this on a daily basis. Number one is through meditation every morning, waking up saying, how do I want to feel today? Who do I want to be today? Then sitting in my meditation and observing the thoughts that I'm having, then repeating positive affirmations on how I want to feel and who I want to be. And I
Mhm.
think being intentional about how you start your day, how you're not only thinking, but how you're talking to yourself and treating yourself is huge.
Yeah. I believe that. I have this on my desk it just sits on my desk. There's
Mm.
365 of these quick little quotes, but this one stays.
Yeah.
You know, everything, and which is intention is everything. You know, it's a little
Mm.
quote that I have. Yeah, I
I love that.
totally agree with that. And I think that we are in, you know, in control of how, you know, how we show up, how we are all day long. And so that can lift us rather than limit us. And, you know, I think that's
Mhm.
super powerful. So the clients that you're helping, because you and I had a conversation about this too, can you be a little more specific about who you're trying to help in this world? I mean, who's your target market?
Sure. The ideal client avatar. I mean, I say we best speak to the younger version of ourselves. So I'm looking at individuals who maybe have a dream or a vision or a goal for themselves, but feel stuck and are not taking action or need help with that action step. And most often, what I find is an individual who needs help developing a more positive relationship with themselves.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I think ultimately everything else is a manifestation of that. Once you build this relationship and that's strong and sturdy, you'll start to see everything else in your life start to change.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, and it can be something that holds you down, right? It just creates thin ice. You know, you think
Yeah.
it's fine, but it's not. It's really thin ice, and very quickly you could, fall down or circle the drain very, very quickly if we're not careful, with that part of it. So I know that you have a gift. Well, I want to ask you another question. I know you have a gift for my listeners, but I want to ask you another question about what is there a strategy or a tactic or 3 steps that you use with people? And maybe you could share one of the steps, maybe one of your favorite things that you do with people to help them get clear, or clear the cobwebs out. Or maybe it's the first step once that you have had the opportunity to clear out those cobwebs. What is, it's sort of like, um, Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Wait, first I have to recognize that they are alcoholics, and then they take the first step.
Mhm. Yeah. So, I mean, in line with what you're saying of clearing out the cobwebs, like once we've made it to that point, it really is developing and focusing in on the vision, because without a vision or a goal, you're essentially walking around aimlessly, and it comes back to the intention. You have to know where you're going or have an idea of where you want to be going. And some people don't have a clear vision for themselves. So it's definitely the starting point of like, what do you want in this life? And that's a really important question to ask, because if not, you're again living life by default. You're just going along with the motions and just accepting whatever happens to you. But what I've seen so much is like when we can develop a clear vision together and break that bigger vision down into actionable steps, you can start working towards today. The amount of motivation and positive energy that comes with working towards a goal, it's really valuable.
Yeah, I totally agree, because otherwise, I said chasing your tail. I think that I've seen people have breakthroughs in dealing with childhood issues. I've seen them have a breakthrough, and then without that lack of vision, they went right back into it,
Yeah.
right back into it. And it's like, well, you didn't really break through. No,
Mhm.
you did. You just didn't have the plan to be successful. It's like getting out
Yeah.
of prison, right? You get out, if somebody gets out of prison, and the reason they go back in, even they don't want to be there, they don't want to be there at
Right.
all, is because
Right.
they don't have that plan. Yeah, that's very good. I love that you said that. That's wonderful.
And yeah, and here's what it is,
Go ahead.
Jen. It's being excited about your future,
Yeah.
seeing possibilities, getting excited for what's next, what's to come, and getting like on board with this vision. Like the future can be even better than what's already happened, instead of sitting in this space of I'm fearful of what's going to happen next. Instead, get back in the driver's seat of your story and start creating some of the things that you envision for yourself.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I call that the driving Miss Daisy syndrome.
Mm.
Sit in the back seat, right? I have
Right.
I have driving Miss Daisy syndrome. Just whoever's going to drive, as long as somebody else drives, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
But then you don't know where you're going. Yeah, and your day
Mhm.
never gets done. Okay, so I know the free gift that you have for my listeners is Dream to Reality Blueprint. So tell us a little bit about the blueprint, and we'll have the link obviously available to everyone. But what is this? Tell us a little bit about this 7-step blueprint and why it's important for someone to start right here.
Sure. So it goes back to setting a vision for yourself. How do we do that? I thought it'd be great to break that down into 7 steps. And I'm not going to go over all 7 steps here
Right.
because, you get to download the blueprint and have all 7 delivered right to you.
Yeah.
But I just thought this is something that everyone wants. Who doesn't want to turn their dreams into reality? So figuring out how we do that, I came up with 7 steps. And one of those steps I'll share with you
Mhm.
is writing down your dream or your vision, getting really clear on one specific dream or vision, because there's a statistic that when we write something down, it's
Mhm.
42% more likely to happen than if we don't. So
Yeah.
that right there for me is there's just all these little ways we can really start to actualize our potential or our dreams or our vision. And there's little hacks to it. So that's what I'm fascinated by. And that's part of the reason I created this dream to reality blueprint.
Yeah, I love that. And what a great way, as we're recording this, it's, June 3rd, we're in the last minutes of the first half of the game, right? This year. So, and if you're not a game person, like a football or basketball or, sports person, you're halfway through, the year, you set your goals, you had your New Year's party and all of that. You said all that. And, at the end of June, this is the perfect time for you to be saying, okay, I'm going to go in the locker room and I'm either winning or I'm losing the game. And what adjustments do I need to be making? And I think this is the perfect time to use this strategy. And I know we'll release this around that time. But, if you're listening to this and it's October 3 years from now, and you haven't done it, then it's a great way to get started immediately, right? But I'm
Yeah.
just posing now is a really, really good time to say, where do I stand? What's going on? And I think it's better to know than wonder. And this document, which I have filled out, I always download the gifts and go over myself, which I have downloaded and filled out. I'm always doing assessments, believe it or not, because I do a lot of these podcasts. Now I have an assessment. And I'm doing all these assessments to figure out where I'm at. And I learn something new from each time. So, while you're listening here today, as Lauren just said, you will retain or have the higher likelihood of taking action when you write it down by 42%. So, stop the recording, go back, listen to it again and take notes, because that's how you're going to take the action to get this wonderful gift that she has given that might, steer you in an entirely different direction in your life. So, all right. So with that said, Lauren, tell us a little bit about you, in the sense that I always switch it up on what I ask at the end. It could be a book, it could be a quote, what are you reading right now, that kind of stuff. But I like asking this sometimes too. So, if we were all going to come and visit you, and not all at one time, everybody listening, right? If someone were to come and visit you for the weekend, what would we be doing? Tell us what a weekend with Lauren would be like. This gives us some insight who you are.
Love this. We'd have like a wellness focused weekend. We would go hike my favorite hike at Torrey Pines State Beach. So you first hike up the hill, and then at the bottom of the hill, you reach the sand, and then you walk the rest of the hike on the actual beach next to the ocean. It's absolutely beautiful. So that's one thing we would do.
Oh, wow.
I would take you to Yes, I'd take you to my favorite spa and we'd do like facials or massages, spend a day by the pool. I'm then also a big foodie. So I love keeping up with like the hot new restaurants in town. And this comes back to being a lifestyle manager and having to know where to send people. So I'd take you out to dinner to one of my favorite spots. And at the bar of this restaurant, they have a secret sushi menu, and it's some of the best sushi I've ever had. So we'd then go for sushi at this restaurant called The Market in San Diego.
Oh, wow. Where is that at? Is it near like Gaslamp District, or is it heading up to?
So it's in North County, San Diego, in
Oh,
Del
okay.
Mar, Rancho Santa Fe
Yeah.
area.
Okay, yeah, I know. There's
Yeah.
a whole bunch of little gems up there. I love those places. Yeah,
Yeah.
look, I'm vegetarian, so I wouldn't consider myself a foodie, but I seem like one because I'm always asking about food, because I sometimes feel like how do I always say this? I say I'm a bird in the desert looking for a worm, except I don't eat worms. Right? Because they're meat, because it's meat, right? But I mean, that's how it feels sometimes when I travel, trying to find that. So I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow, what
Well,
a fun
you know
weekend.
what? You can also still be a foodie if you're vegetarian. Look at all the new like plant-based
Oh my
vegetarian
gosh,
restaurants that
yeah,
are
there's
popping up
so
around the
much.
globe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much, out there. And yeah, but with traveling, I'm always carrying my own food. You remember, I don't know if you remember, because this was back when Friends was on and stuff, but Monica, when they had their first, when they had a baby, Rachel had a baby, and she said, or Ross had a baby, and she said to the baby, I will always have gum. I will always have gum. That was the first thing. And I will
Yeah.
always have gum. And so I'm like, well, I always have food on me, always have fresh food on me when I travel, because I can't find it anywhere, right?
What are your go-to like healthy snacks that you bring?
I love grapes. And they're easy to carry. Like I love blueberries, but they get mushed. And so
Yeah.
grapes don't get mushed. So I eat grapes, and I eat cherry tomatoes, and I have non-salted just a variety of peanuts, whatever's laying around, cashews, almonds, sometimes almond slivers, sometimes pistachios, already out of the shell, but nothing has salt on it because of traveling. Yeah, I would say that's probably usually a banana, an apple, some celery sometimes. Yeah, but it's usually something that is sustainable, in high altitude, heat, pushing.
I think that's smart because you can't always find a healthy snack in an airport.
You can
like easily. So,
No.
yeah.
No, absolutely. It's crazy. And then my water, I always bring little packets of electrolytes and stuff for my water and make sure that I'm healthy. And I bug everybody. It's me again. I have to go to the restroom. I have to go.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny. But I love what you're doing. And so what is the best way for everyone to get a hold of you? We all have multiple ways, but what's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to get a hold of me is to follow me on Instagram. It's my name @Lauren Fields. Send me a DM, follow me. I'll follow you back. And I have a podcast now that's out, the Fields podcast.
Yeah.
So that's a great place to start and listen to. But yeah, I'd say Instagram would be where to
I love
find
it.
me.
And I've been a guest on your show, so I'm excited to have that released.
Yeah.
We're doing a little pod swap right now.
Mhm.
And, I just wish you the best in your podcast adventures as well.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate you being on here today.
Thank you, Lady Jen. It's been such a pleasure.
Absolutely. So again, I want to say thank you so much for listening in today. And don't forget to hop on over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel because we have so much more than this podcast. We have a couple of other podcasts that we are, doing as well. And you'll find some playlists with some of the content that I put out and some of my travels, not always, but some of my travels. It's just a great community that we're developing over there. So I appreciate you doing all that. And again, want to thank you for listening in to Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Success to Significance with Jen Duplessis, the #1 podcast for people wanting to give more value and make an impact. Loved this episode? Be sure to subscribe right now at www.jenduplessis.com/S2S for more stories, strategies, and thoughts to help you gain significance and success. And if you like what we're doing, don't forget to give us a rating and review so we can continue to bring you the best content possible. Join us next week for another breakthrough episode. Thank you for listening.